Hey, Clemson family, big news for the football program today with a commit coming in, the first defensive back of the class of 2025, and it's a whopper.
It is. I'm Daniel Shirley. What an addition to this class. This class is off to a great start, and really excited to see Bill another Georgia product. Right? I mean, these past 2 years, and Georgia's always been important to Clemson recruiting. If you pay attention to Clemson football, you know that. But these past couple of years, Clemson has been really busy in the Peach State.
Yep, and a neck of the woods where there has been a major figure in Clemson football history. We'll get into that in a little bit. We will also get into previewing the NCAA tournament. The Tigers are in. First time in a while, isn't it? And it's going to be an interesting draw. We've got a few things to say about that. You can catch all our episodes, by the way, at youtube.com/Clemson Kickoff. Jump in there and comment. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff today. We might even get to the baseball series win over Duke, or we might wait until after this basketball game and then just talk about that while previewing this weekend series. We'll see how it goes. Also, we're going to work a little bit under the hood at clemsonkickoff.com. So jump in there, see what it looks like now. I did make a few updates there, but might do some a little more of an overhaul and find some new ways to keep you posted on everything that's happening in Clemson sports. But let's get into the big happening today, Monday, March 18th, as we record this. Tae Harris, defensive back out of Cedartown, Georgia, stone's throw from Cartersville, the old home of Trevor Lawrence. Got a lot done for Clemson football, didn't he? And it's Mike Reed and Mickey Conn really working North Georgia once again for the defensive backfield for the Tigers, especially Reed with the corners has been very successful there. Harris might project as more of a safety type, but he's got cover skills. He's got good size. You'd love to have that kind of length and coverage. Maybe down the road as Khalil Barnes grows into more of a true safety role, maybe Harris comes in at that nickel spot, doesn't he?
Yeah, he could. 5'11", 185 is kind of the size. And again, those vary on each site. But
Yeah, I found an
but
average of 6'0". I'll call it up in a minute here.
but that's I mean that's a size that you can kind of mold, right? There's clay there, as coaches like to say. You can play with that clay a little bit and see what you can get out of it. Talented young guy. He wouldn't be if Clemson. Clemson wouldn't be recruiting him if he wasn't. So he's got everything you need, right? And he's highly ranked on all of the boards, all the services. ESPN's got him a 4, Rivals got him a 4, 24/7's got him a 4, as 4 stars. So it's not like he's a 4 in one and then 3 or 2 in the others. I mean, this is across the board. He's seen as a really good player, committed
Stars
to
matter.
stars don't matter. Committed to Georgia,
Yeah.
and then decommitted, and now he's committed to the Tigers. So, look, they've been busy early in this class, which is different than what we've seen, especially last year, where things kind of dragged into the summer, and then the commitments came a little bit later. They're off to a really good start to this class.
Yep. 6'0", 190 if you average out the 4 services. I know ESPN very dead set on having camp measurements, so maybe that's an older camp measurement. I saw something on his Twitter feed while I was looking at him. He's got a 202 on his home bathroom scale. So, somewhere in there lies the truth. And of course, you'll find out when he gets to campus someday. Sometimes when the guys decommit like this and then we pick them up, it's a little bit of a yellow flag to me. Not so much this time, because this is really about the departure of Fran Brown from Georgia, isn't it? Him leaving the Bulldogs program with good reason to go be the head coach at Syracuse, but that caused Harris to kind of open things up. And I'll tell you what, with again the recent success, especially of Mike Reed and teaching guys how to cover, getting so many first-round corners in there. Even if he's going to project as a safety down the road to have those cover skills with Mike Reed, and frankly, Mickey Conn has done a heck of a job in the safety room in recent years. Some folks thought he kind of got off to a rough start. Some folks kind of say, "Oh, he's just Dabo's buddy." But his roots in North Georgia pay off once again on the recruiting trail.
Yeah, they do. Former high school coach here in the state where I live, at one of the better programs in the state. Bill, why do they measure players without their shoes on? They don't play without their shoes on. So why does it matter? That extra half an inch with the cleats on really really makes a big deal. I digress.
Maybe
But
they think
no,
they're getting out there. Remember those old Bobby Hurley trainers with the 5 inch
yeah.
front foresole, I guess you call it, under the toes and other balls. Maybe they think they're going to get out there.
Make sure they're not playing with risers in their shoes,
There you
I
go.
guess. But no, look, I think this is another good addition. I mean, he's a physical player. For the defensive backfield, he's going to let you know he's there. I like that part of it. I think Clemson could use a lot of that, and I mean everybody can, but you really want to add that physical play, and I like that. So we'll see what he brings to the board, but I think it's a good addition to this class.
Yep. And the first defensive back in this class, as I mentioned, and what I really like about this is he's not just a guy you plug in and check a box. Okay, there's one of our DPs for this year. He also enables them because of his flexibility, his ability to cover. Maybe he's a little bit of like a Malcolm Green type or Khalil Barnes type or Andrew Makuba, where he could go out and play corner in a pinch. And that really allows Conn and Reed to collaborate and say, look, let's get who we want. Let's not try to have, two corners, two safeties. Let's go out and get guys who can play. And this is one of those guys who will give them a lot of flexibility, not just in this class, but in that backfield, for that 3 to 5 year window that he's going to be here at Clemson, if everything works out as intended. So just a nice piece to have, and just a terrific talent. You love looking up and down at his social media timelines. He's supporting his teammates, getting support from his teammates. Coaches are high on him. So that's the kind of guy that Dabo Swinney and this staff really wants to pursue, and someone who came in for a visit, really liked what he saw, and it is planning to come and be a Clemson Tiger, another one from that North Georgia pipeline. And once again, just the trend of recruiting, the 23 class, the 24 class, and now this 25 class. You see the whole thing there on the screen. Jalen Buckley, offensive lineman, did decommit after a very exciting commit during his visit. So the class is back to 11 with the addition of Harris, but now maybe a little more balance for the time being. 4 defenders and 7 offensive players. And again, big things happening on that offensive line. Matt Luke is doing work all over the field. You've got coaches working their positions kind of set at quarterback and running back. So we'll wait and see what they add at receiver, linebacker, and that defensive backfield. And then again on those offensive trenches. So youtube.com/Clemson kickoff as more happens with the recruiting class. We will be on top of it, but more immediately coming up for Clemson fans to watch and see the fruits of is the NCAA tournament. I was surprised, I guess, to see them as a 6 seed, selected to go out west. They'll actually play, is it in Charlotte, the game?
Charlotte, the game is in Charlotte. No, Memphis.
Memphis,
Sorry, I
thank
don't
you.
know why I'm
I
thinking
knew
Charlotte.
Charlotte
Memphis.
didn't sound right.
Yeah, Memphis. You threw me
And
there.
that, Daniel, you got the date and time on that too, right?
Yeah, 3 o'clock, and pretty much 3:10. We know the game's not going to start at 3:10. It'll probably be 3:20 or 3:25. Once you start playing these games, they always get behind, so they're not going to start on time. But 3:10, 3:15, somewhere around there, Friday afternoon. So, I think it's a good time. I think it avoids that noon window. I mean, those sleepy noon games, I don't want any part of that. Gives you guys time to get to the arena, get used to it a little bit, see what it's like, and then get ready for the game. So, you were surprised. I was shocked at a 6 seed. The way this team finished the season, the loss to Wake, especially the game against Boston College, was just disturbing. I can't even still wrap my head around this team playing like that. Bill, there was something to play for in DC.
Yeah.
And you saw that with NC State, right? Why can't Clemson ever be that team, that goes on that run? And they didn't have to win 5 games in 5 days.
Yeah.
They had to win 3, and they couldn't win 1. And it was shocking. Well, not shocking, because I was not surprised. It was disturbing. The lack of effort was shocking. I mean, just the Boston College was physical. They played with urgency. They played with desperation. And Clemson played with none of it, really, outside of P.J. Hall. P.J. Hall played pretty well. He wasn't great, but he was pretty good. Nobody else was good at all. And what did I say to you last week? Who's the key to this team? Chase Hunter.
Yeah.
And he goes 0 for 10. You can't win like that. And you also, I just praised PJ Hall. He can't have one rebound. He's your center. And they got destroyed on the defensive glass, where Boston College was all over the offensive boards for them, getting rebounds, getting second shots. And PJ Hall has one rebound. So I know Brad Brownell kind of went after the guards, and they've got to get involved and get engaged. It's fine. Sure. That's true. That's true. But PJ Hall has two as well. Yeah. He can't have one rebound. And you can't depend on Ian Shefflin to get every rebound. Somebody has to help him, because there are going to be nights when he's off, and he didn't play well that night. Was it Thursday night? He didn't play well.
He's hurting a little bit, right?
Yeah, he's not healthy. PJ's not healthy, obviously, whatever. I mean, you know, how many guys are healthy this time of year?
Yeah.
Right? So they have to, I mean, I would think, especially if I'm a senior, this could be my last game. And I'm gonna give you everything I got. And if you're one of the other guys, this is my last game this season, and I'm going to give you everything you got. And we see it all the time. The teams that play more desperate in the NCAA tournament typically win, unless it's just the huge talent disparity, right? UConn's not going to lose to a number 16 just because the number 16 team plays harder. It's not going to happen. Not this UConn team anyway. But
a little different.
I thought they would be a 7 or an 8 at best. I kept waiting for them to pop up on the 9 seed. I did.
Yeah.
And that because a lot of the bracketologists had them dropping to an 8. And, you know, their non-conference saved them this year. Their performances in the non-conference kept them at that level. But they have not been that team since January.
Right.
Can they be that team again now that they're not playing ACC teams again? And maybe ACC is better than people think it is. We'll find out. But I don't believe that you can just snap your fingers and everything's better and flip a switch. I don't believe in that.
Right.
You have to put in the work. And grit. Oh, we hear about grit all the time. You know what grit is? Playing hard, playing defense, and rebounding. And you know what, Bill, what do we talk about in football all the time? The ball's the thing.
Yeah.
Same thing in basketball. Who wants the ball? Go get it. Dive on the court and go get the ball. Go get the loose balls. Go get the defensive rebounds. If they do that, they can win. But, and you pointed this out, there's really disturbing quotes from the head coach at his news conference on Monday or Sunday. I'm sorry. All my days are blurring together.
Yesterday, as we record this, being Sunday. Right.
Yeah. Really disturbing quotes from the coach, from Brad Brownell. As you're going into postseason, he's saying he doesn't know if he can coach his team hard.
Right.
And he doesn't know what happened last week.
Yeah.
That is not, I don't know how you have any confidence going into Friday afternoon if you're a Clemson fan after hearing that.
No, and let me go ahead and put a couple of extended sound bites in right here. The two that you just mentioned, I don't want to just lift him out of context and have just a sound bite. So stick with us for a few minutes, let him say everything. And Brownell did have a lot of very typical, hey, positive things to say. Hey, teams are going to have a down cycle and have to dig out of it. And that Clemson has done that at times this year. And they have strung together some nice wins in a row at the various times of the year. But here are the two things that you mentioned, Brad Brownell talking about.
Certainly wish we would have played better in our last game. I don't really know what happened. It wasn't that we weren't ready to play. We were ready to play. We had prepared properly. We did all the motivational stuff you can do as a coach to get your guys ready. You know, I think Boston College was playing really well, and they kind of punched us in the mouth early. We took the first one, bounced back there, and then for whatever reason, the game got away. And yeah. I think that's the big key in coaching is, you know, when to apply pressure and when to take pressure away from your guys, when to be demanding and when to be patient. Those are hard situations, you know. I haven't been as demanding with this team in certain situations because, to be honest with you, I don't have a group that handles that as well. And sometimes that's a little bit how kids are. More kids are that way today. You've got to really be careful. You know, you need to challenge them, but you need to challenge them in different ways. You need to talk to them, and you have to explain a lot of things of why. And, you know, you have to encourage as much as you can, which we've always done. But, you know, and we've tried to do that. And I think you have to be real with them, though. You know, I think they need to understand what's real. And when they don't perform to the standard that, you know, you've seen them do, or, you know, certainly believe in these kids to be really good players. And so we have high standards for them and high hopes for them. And you know, competitive guys usually respond. But you're not always going to play great. I mean, I think we need to understand that. There's going to be times when guys are trying really hard and it's just not going as well. And sometimes that's where, you know, the mental part of it gets into play. You got to have some help there. But again, I think our guys are moving to a good place and certainly excited about this opportunity.
Facing New Mexico, a team that won their
And so there you have it. And so those are pretty clear missives, what he's got to avoid. And let's get into the matchup against New Mexico, 6 seed versus an 11. And I dug into, you had some things at The Athletic about the odds for every team in the field, theathletic.com. You can go and check that out. But I also got into KenPom a little bit because I was so surprised, and as you said, shocked. I almost used that word myself, that Clemson was as high as a 6. New Mexico being an 11 kind of negates, it's not as wide a gap as you would think, I would say. In fact, according to KenPom, goes the opposite of the net ratings, which everyone seems to just gravitate toward as if it's the Bible of who's going to win a game. New Mexico says, hey, look at KenPom. We're 23rd overall. Clemson merely 34th. And I would guess that there's some recency bias there, that it not only, you know, how Clemson has played in recent weeks and months, but also that it is the stronger portion of their schedule. Look, they caught South Carolina before South Carolina really was getting going, with Lamont Paris on the sideline. And in fact, Wake Forest was 3 spots above Clemson. They're not even in the tournament. So that gives you a little indication of why there can be some concern. I also looked at some of the matchups. That second line there, Clemson's adjusted offensive rating in KenPom versus New Mexico's adjusted defense rating. That's a pretty good matchup. I mean, that's very close, about as close as you can get, right? 23rd and 27th. Defensively, more of an edge to New Mexico there. 41st overall in adjusted defense. Clemson, 67th overall in adjusted defense. So I can see why Clemson made the tournament. I was actually a little concerned. I mean, look, everyone said, hey, they're going to be in the field, right? I was not so sure myself. If I would have been sitting in the committee, what would I do with Clemson after losing to Wake Forest and losing to Boston College, their final two outings of the year? But you can look at the numbers from KenPom and from Net and say, okay, you know, they're in the field of 68, and rightfully so. And there's nothing on here that has Clemson worse than 68th, and not too many teams can say that everything is that good. But it's going to be interesting nonetheless, even though New Mexico certainly has, as you can see, a couple of lines there, a much lower strength of schedule. But boy, look at that opposing defense, 68 for Clemson. You take Virginia out of there, that opposing, that adjusted offense of 27th really does benefit from having not the greatest defenses against them on the schedule.
Yeah, and look, I mean, I spent the last rant ripping the team. I don't want it to feel, or a quote ripping. I don't want to feel like I don't think this is a good team. It is a good team, and it's been a good season. This is kind of what you hope for every year at Clemson, is to be in the tournament, but it's once every 4 years. And then if you get blown out next week, we'll see. But look, I think there are toss-ups at 6-11, 7-10, 8-9. Clemson 6-11. This is a toss-up. I don't gamble. I don't especially don't gamble on college sports, but Vegas has New Mexico as a favorite. The NCAA tournament obviously would say, or the NCAA committee would say, Clemson's a favorite. Those things even out. I don't really think about any of that kind of stuff. And Bill, we know once the games start, the seeds don't matter. We talk about stars not mattering. Once those games start on noon, those seeds go out the books. Look, we're 10 years from, here where I live in Macon, Mercer beating Duke, and nobody gave Mercer a chance.
Right.
So it was a good matchup for Mercer. It was a senior-laden team against a really young Duke team. And then Duke won the national title the next year with a totally different roster. But once you get into the matchup, this looks like a toss-up. And can this team win a toss-up? We'll see. You would hope winning at Bama, winning at North Carolina, beating TCU at a neutral site, beating Boise State. They beat UAB. UAB's in the tournament. They beat them at a neutral site. You would think all those wins would give them some toughness, and you build up some scar tissue in those kinds of wins. But man, like I said, they had a lot to play for the other night at Boston College, and they played with no urgency. And really, Bill, start to finish. They played well at one point for about 4 minutes, and that was it. The rest of the game, they were terrible. And now you can say, oh, it's the worst outing of the year. Okay, that's true. Maybe they got it out of their system. If you're a Clemson fan, that's what you're hoping for. But you look at the matchups and you just had the numbers there. This is going to be a tough game. Richard Pitino is a really good coach.
Yeah.
New Mexico plays hard. They defend. They rebound. They get after the glass. And what have we talked about with Clemson? Not being good on the defensive glass. That's been a problem all year. You can make stats say whatever you want them to say. But if you watch this Clemson team, the things that have really hurt them this year is defense, defensive rebounding, and they're streaky on offense. When they're on offense, they can be as good as anybody in the country. But they can have nights where they don't look good and they get pushed around. And that's what happened the other night against BC.
Well, and I was going to ask you, because you've seen more games, you've had the opportunity to see more games than I have this year. If you're looking at Clemson as being 5 seeds better than New Mexico, and you're saying, hey, this should be a favorite, what is there that Clemson can do that you can say, look, they should be able to own this on the court? Because frankly, from what I have seen, I just don't see that one thing that Clemson can really turn to anytime in a game and say, this is what we can do and do really well. And if we get in trouble, here's what our go-to is. Do you see something like that you think they can lean on in a trouble moment?
If they would do it, is get the ball to PJ Hall in the post. But he struggles with physical defensive players, right? And I'll admit, I don't know as much about New Mexico player by player. I mean, I've read about them and looked at them, but I don't know a lot about them as far as their individual players. But if you go back and watch the games where PJ hasn't been able to get things done in the post, it's typically against an Armando Bacot or or these big, strong, physical guys inside, and then he has to go outside and shoot threes. And if he's not hitting those, then they're in trouble. And I do think most teams they have an advantage with him and Ian Shefflin in the post. Most teams. But then they don't do it. They get away from it. And the coaching staff just kind of says, oh, well, I don't know why. Well, I know why, and I'm sitting 2 states away. I can figure it out. How about get him in the post? And I tell you, Bill, it's frustrating to watch them. I'll give you an example. The Notre Dame game. They went down the court and they could score anytime they wanted to in the post. And yet they're just jacking up wild threes left and right. And, if I'm the coach of that team, either you get in the post or you're sitting. And either you throw him the ball in the post or you're sitting. I mean, people freaking out about Chase Hunter being 0 for 10 and why he's playing. Do they have any better options? They don't have another option off the bench who can score like he can. But now 0 for 10 is 0 for 10, right? I mean, you should give somebody else a chance. I understand that. But, I mean, Dylan Hunter's not a scorer. Josh Beadle is not a scorer. You kind of hoping Chase can catch fire and get going. But this is who they are. There's no secret potion to fixing who they are at this point. This is who you are. Right? You have to play hard. Play hard. Play with urgency. Play like it means something to you. That's what happened Thursday. They looked like they knew they were in the NCAA tournament and they didn't care. And the coaching staff couldn't get them to play hard. That's troubling.
Yep. Well, this you see it in the tournament all the time. Teams that get down start trailing. They should be winning. Coaches can coach tough. Coaches can get more out of those guys that way. But also you see coaches who understand their team, and you don't have to look far. Dabo Swinney, you'll hear a different tone out of him every year, depending on 85 guys in the room. So
Yep.
Brownell's got to understand the dozen plus guys in his room and make that happen. And to me, the most alarming thing about it wasn't that he said that, but going into the NCAA tournament, that's what you're saying?
If he says that in December, I'll give it to you. Right? You're still learning your team. It's March, and you're saying those things? I know people know that I've been critical of him, and I don't want it to freak out about it because it is the NCAA tournament, and you should be excited about it.
But we will be rooting for the Tigers. I mean,
Absolutely.
We'll have our alumni fan hats on and
yes,
rooting for them.
You can be excited about it, but there's also this sense of dread of, oh my God, what are we going to see today?
Is Lucy going to take the football away again?
Yes, absolutely.
I've seen that GIF out there a couple of times. So, well, we will come back at you after the game. Hopefully it's going to go better than and all our worries are for naught. I mean, I've also seen things where there's a path in this draw for Clemson to go deep. So we'll see how Clemson does. New Mexico likes tempo was what I read on The Athletic. And if Clemson can own the glass and that team isn't playing well with tempo, Clemson can that's kind of the formula to victory, if you ask me. So youtube.com/Clemson kickoff. Comment, tell us where we're idiots, tell us where you like what we have to say, and we will be back after that game. We'll talk some baseball next time, I promise you. Until then, I'm Bill Zimmerman.
I'm Daniel Shirley. Go Tigers.